Welcome back. And now for the news in detail. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan says the annexation of occupied Kashmir by India is a fatal mistake that will backfire. He was addressing the Azad Kashmir Assembly to mark the Kashmir Solidarity Day. More in this report.
For over 70 years, people of Kashmir have been subjected to inhumane treatment at the hands of the Indian government. A climax of sorts came in August when India unilaterally annexed the occupied valley, leaving the world in shock. Addressing the AJK Assembly, Khan stressed India's unilateral move to annex Kashmir would eventually lead to its independence.
अंग्रेजी की term है fatal mistake.
5th August was a fatal mistake and Modi cannot back down now. He did this to get a big mandate in the elections. He campaigned against Pakistan and promoted Hindutva ideology.
Khan said Prime Minister Narendra Modi's RSS ideology is inspired by Nazism and Hitler. The Prime Minister said this Hindutva ideology has jeopardized the existence of every religious minority in India.
RSS is an organization inspired by Hitler and the Nazis. The RSS's founding fathers have lauded the Nazis in their books. They believe in the ethnic cleansing of Muslims.
Khan said Pakistan has repeatedly warned the international community of Indian actions in Kashmir. He said India could use terrorism or conduct a false flag operation to inflict more torture on the people of occupied Kashmir. He hoped Kashmir will now move towards independence.
Pakistan and the international community observed Kashmir Solidarity Day on the 5th of February to support the Kashmiri people. The people of occupied valley are struggling to secure their right to self-determination guaranteed by the United Nations resolutions. Our correspondent Sumaira Khan has more details.
This is the first Kashmir Solidarity Day being observed since India unilaterally revoked Kashmir's autonomous status last year. Not only was New Delhi's move in violation of all international laws and norms, the people of the occupied valley have also been under lockdown for 185 days. In Pakistan's capital Islamabad, the day began with special prayers for the liberation of Kashmir. A memorandum was presented to the UN resident coordinator in Pakistan to show solidarity with the people of the valley.
The people of Kashmir will have to fight it out themselves. There is no example in the world where the United Nations has helped Muslims in attaining their independence or attaining their freedom.
Rallies, public meetings and seminars were held across the country, including Azad Kashmir, to draw the world's attention to human rights violation in occupied Kashmir. A human chain was formed at the National Press Club Islamabad, led by Special Assistant to Prime Minister on Information and Broadcasting, Dr. Firdaus Ashik Awan. Addressing the rally, Dr. Awan said Indian troops have turned Kashmir into the world's biggest prison.
The Indian-occupied Kashmir has been turned into the world's biggest prison and is faced with terrible human rights violations. The entire valley has become nothing but a dungeon. We, the daughters of Pakistan, have gathered to show our wholehearted support with our Kashmiri brothers and sisters.
Women from different segments of the society, including lawmakers, participated in the rally. Special events were also held at Pakistan's High Commission in France and New Zealand. The Kashmir issue was also discussed at the British Parliament. Meanwhile, civil society and activists held demonstrations against India's occupation of the valley in Belgium, Brussels and Sweden. Pakistan's embassies in Tunisia, Tehran, Jakarta, Bangkok and Kabul also commemorated Kashmir Solidarity Day. The event in Kabul was due to be held at a hotel, but the embassy was reportedly stopped from holding the event after Afghan authorities allegedly pressurized hotel management to cancel the reservation for the event. Reporting for Indus News, Sumaira Khan, Islamabad.
Kashmir is a land full of tragic stories. One of them is of Hamza Basharat, who lives on Pakistan's side of the border but still has family in occupied Kashmir. This is the story of just one of the families yearning to reunite as the lockdown in occupied Kashmir crosses the 185th day.
Hamza Basharat's family is originally from the part of Kashmir currently under Indian occupation. In 1948, his ancestral home was razed to the ground by Indian troops with his grandfather still inside.
My great-grandfather, whose house was on what is now the line of control. My great-grandfather's house was burned down, and he was actually burned alive in his own house while defending it against the Indian army. The army practically, because it was a big house, so they specifically targeted it and they put it on fire, and my great-grandfather, whilst fighting for his life and for his land, he was actually burned alive in that house.
Much of his family was able to escape Indian atrocities in Azad Kashmir, but many of his relatives are on the other side of the line of control. The family was still able to communicate via phone, but that ended last year on 5th August when New Delhi unilaterally annexed the occupied valley and put it under a communications blackout.
The family on the other side of Kashmir, we have no contact with them since August last year, and it is heartbreaking and traumatizing, because we as Kashmiris, we have land there, we have family there. We always sleep with hope, and we wake up with hope that one day we're going to go back to our land, and we're going to go back to our family. We're going to be reunited.
Hamza Basharat says he wants the international community to take notice of the situation. The valley is full of such stories. Reporting for Indus News, Manahil Ahmed, Islamabad.
Meanwhile, Indian forces have martyred 2 more civilians near occupied Kashmir's capital of Srinagar. The incident comes as Pakistan and Kashmiris around the world observe Kashmir Solidarity Day. Occupation forces targeted young Kashmiris during a cordon and search operation in Shaltang. Indian troops have martyred 23 Kashmiri civilians over the past 30 days. The valley is reeling under crushing curfew and communications blackout by India, which has created a humanitarian crisis. In India, artists, including singers and comedians, have joined the ongoing Anti-Citizenship Act protests in the capital, New Delhi. Meanwhile, the all-women sit-in has continued at Delhi's Shaheen Bagh since 16th of December, despite armed attacks on the demonstration. The artists started joining the sit-in after right-wing Hindu parties threatened to attack the protest this week. Despite the threats, rappers, classical and Sufi singers have performed at the sit-in in the last few days. Meanwhile, similar sit-ins continue in Mumbai and Kolkata, where protesters refuse to leave until the law is withdrawn. India has seen countrywide demonstrations against the controversial act, in which 27 people have died in the last 2 months. The Taliban have accused the US of obstructing the Afghan peace negotiations by making numerous changes in its demands. A fresh round of talks between the group and the US delegation, led by Special Envoy Zalmay Khalilzad, is underway in Doha. In a statement, Taliban spokesperson Zabiullah said the group has the intention and the capacity for a resolution. He said US President Donald Trump's tweets are hindering progress. The spokesperson said differences between Kabul and Washington are the other major reason for the talks' failure. He said, unlike Washington, the Taliban's position and stance is principled and concerted. The Afghanistan Independent Human Rights Commission has said 2019, like previous years, was a deadly year for the Afghan civilians. In a report, the Rights Commission said the situation is bad despite ongoing peace efforts to end the 2-decade-long war. The report said over 2,800 civilians were killed, while almost 8,000 were wounded in the conflict. It said almost 29,000 have been killed and around 58,000 others wounded from 2009 to 2019. It said around 3,100 were killed in IED blasts, around 2,500 in ground battles, and 1,800 died due to rocket fire. Iran's President Hassan Rouhani says the US is a terrorist country which commits terrorist acts. In a televised speech, Rouhani said the US wants to force Iran to surrender through unequal negotiations. He also said US President Donald Trump's Middle East plan is the crime of the century. Tensions have spiked between Tehran and Washington since top Iranian military commander Qasem Soleimani was killed in a US drone strike. Iran retaliated with a missile attack against a US base in Iraq days later. Iran's ambassador to Pakistan has proposed a new bloc of 5 countries to boost cooperation and resolve regional issues. Regional issues. Speaking in Islamabad, envoy Sayyid Mohammad Ali Hosseini said Turkey, Pakistan, Iran, Russia and China can forge a new alliance for a better future of the region. He said the OIC has not been effective in tackling issues of the Islamic world. The ambassador said, being a neighbor, Pakistan holds a special place in the foreign policy of Iran. Hosseini also called for enhancing cooperation among the developing Muslim countries to create a common market. After trading bombs over the past couple of days, Russia and Turkey have agreed to take immediate actions to improve coordination in Syria. Turkey's President Tayyip Erdogan and Russian President Vladimir Putin discussed the recent developments over the phone. On Monday, over 50 soldiers were killed in clashes between Turkish forces and the Moscow-backed Syrian army. Kremlin said Putin and Erdogan highlighted the need to follow mutual agreements on Syria's Idlib province. It said both the presidents reiterated support to the intra-Syrian dialogue in the framework of the Syrian Constitutional Committee in Geneva. Meanwhile, Erdogan wants Syrian forces to withdraw from Turkish posts by the end of this month, or Ankara will act.
At the moment, 2 of our 12 observation posts are behind the regime's lines. We hope that the process of the regime pulling back behind our observation posts is completed within the month of February. If the regime does not pull back during this time, Turkey will have to do this job personally.
In Turkey, 33 people have been killed and dozens more trapped after a second avalanche struck a mountainside of the eastern province of Van. About 300 rescue workers were at the site dealing with an earlier avalanche that killed 5 people on Tuesday. The Interior Ministry said 30 people have been rescued. Officials say the number of dead or injured could rise further. The UN says it is committed to a 2-state solution on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. In a meeting in New York, Secretary General Antonio Guterres said the organization aims to resolve the conflict on the basis of pre-1967 borders. Guterres said the body supports resolutions, international law and bilateral agreements made throughout the years to end the conflict. He said resolving the Israeli-Palestinian conflict remains key to sustainable peace in the Middle East. Meanwhile, a draft Security Council resolution has condemned an Israeli plan to annex its West Bank settlements. The draft text circulated by Tunisia and Indonesia gives some members disapproval of the US President Donald Trump's peace plan. Diplomats said negotiations on the text will likely begin later this week. Israeli aircraft have bombed a number of locations on the Gaza Strip. The Israeli army claims it hit targets belonging to Hamas's military wing in retaliation to rockets fired from the area. No casualties have been reported by the Palestinian Ministry of Health. This is the 5th time in a week that Israeli warplanes have targeted the Gaza Strip. Tensions between Israel and Palestine have been rising since US President Donald Trump presented his Middle East peace plan. The EU says its top diplomat, Joseph Borrell, will hold talks in Washington with US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and White House senior advisor Jared Kushner. In a statement, the EU Foreign Service said the meetings will provide an opportunity to advance foreign policy dialogue between the bloc and Washington. It said the talks should focus specifically on ways to enhance transatlantic relations. Despite divisions over Iran, Pompeo has sought to re-establish friendlier ties with the incoming leaders of the EU, including Borrell. Earlier, Borrell rejected parts of a US peace plan that would keep Israeli settlements in the West Bank. He said President Donald Trump's proposals broke with internationally agreed parameters. In Sudan, the head of the country's Sovereign Council, Abdul Fattah al-Burhan, says his meeting with Israel's Prime Minister has no bearing on Khartoum's stance on Palestine. Playing down his meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu in Uganda, al-Burhan said the only thing on the agenda was national security. In a statement, al-Burhan said Khartoum's position on Palestinians' right to set up an independent state will remain firm. Monday's surprise meeting stirred a controversy in Sudan, with the government saying it was not notified ahead of time. Palestinian factions responded to the news with anger, with President Mahmoud Abbas accusing Khartoum of stabbing Palestinians in the back. More stories to follow, but right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. 490 people have died from the new coronavirus in China, with more than 24,000 are infected. The number of the daily deaths reached another record high in the country, with 65 fatalities in Hubei province. After the lockdown in Hunan and Hubei provinces, officials in Zhejiang province have limited the number of people allowed to leave their homes. The virus continues to spread, with Singapore, Malaysia and Thailand reporting new infections in people that have never been to China. Meanwhile, 10 people on a cruise ship quarantined off the coast of Japan yesterday tested positive for the disease. But the World Health Organization continues to insist that the outbreak is not a pandemic.
Currently, we are not in a pandemic. We are at the phase where it's an epidemic with multiple foci, and we will try to extinguish the transmission in each of these foci.
China's National Health Commission says almost 900 people earlier diagnosed with the new coronavirus have recovered after the treatment. Now moving on, the World Health Organization has played down reports of breakthrough drugs being discovered to treat people infected with the new coronavirus. Spokesman Tariq Jasarevic said there are no known effective therapeutics against the virus. He said the WHO recommends enrollment into a randomized controlled trial to test drug efficacy and safety. Earlier, a Chinese media report said researchers at the Zhejiang University had found an effective drug for the virus. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin has proposed stripping pharmacies of their licenses if they raise prices for antivirus masks. Moscow has restricted crossings along its land border with China and has flown home its first group of citizens from Wuhan. US President Donald Trump has pledged to end the war in Afghanistan and bring all American troops back home. Speaking at the State of the Union address, Trump said America's enemies are on the run, its fortunes are on the rise, and the future is blazing bright. This report has the details.
During his 90-minute long speech, Trump reunited U.S. Army officer Sergeant Townsend Williams, deployed in Afghanistan, with his family.
It is also not our function to serve other nations as law enforcement agencies. These are warfighters that we have, the best in the world, and they either want to fight to win or not fight at all. We are working to finally end America's longest war and bring our troops back home.
Trump also reiterated his call to Iran to abandon its pursuit of nuclear weapons and accused Tehran of spreading terror. Trump's address became a shocking display of U.S. divisions as House Speaker Nancy Pelosi ripped up her copy of the speech on live television. Meanwhile, reacting to Trump's speech, Democratic Governor of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer, attacked the Republican Party on health care. In her speech, Gretchen said Democrats are trying to make U.S. health care better, while Republicans are trying to take it away from every American.
Pete Buttigieg has taken a marginal lead in the first batch of results from the Iowa Democratic Party caucus. The party released the partial result after a delay of 21 hours. The results showed Buttigieg has won 26.8% of the state delegate equivalents, while Bernie Sanders is second on 25.2%. Elizabeth Warren is third on 18.4%, and Joe Biden fourth on 15.4%. The data from 71% of the precincts showed the centrist Amy Klobuchar is fifth on 12.6%. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump won a landslide victory in the Republican Party Iowa primary. The U.S. Navy has deployed a nuclear submarine to counter the threat posed by Russia. Undersecretary of Defense for Policy John Rood said the Navy has fielded a low-yield submarine-launched ballistic missile warhead. Democrats in the House of Representatives criticized the deployment as dangerous. Rood said the new warhead supports Washington's commitment to extended deterrence. The new nuclear weapon is a modification of the pre-existing warhead, which is used to arm submarine missiles. Democrats said the Pentagon has refused to answer congressional questions about the weapon. Romania's Liberal government has collapsed in a no-confidence vote after only 3 months in office. A total of 261 of 465 members of the parliament voted in favor of a motion against the minority government led by Ludovic Orban. The leader of the opposition, who spearheaded the no-confidence vote, said the government is now dismissed by a large margin. The move was triggered by Orban's announcement that he will try to change the law for local elections. The Social Democrats were vehemently opposed because they saw the move as a threat to their chances of success in local elections due in June. President Klaus Iohannis must now appoint a new prime minister, who in turn must try to assemble a parliamentary majority. Catalan academic Clara Ponsati has become the newest member of the European Parliament. Speaking in Brussels, Ponsati said she represents thousands of Catalans, but Spain accuses Ponsati for her role in Catalonia's independence campaign. The Catalan leader said she will remain at the disposal of the Edinburgh court that is processing her case. She was accompanied by former Catalan leader Carles Puigdemont and former minister Toni Comín. Ponsati was given a seat in the European Parliament chamber after Britain's withdrawal from the bloc. Last week, Spain's government announced it's starting talks on resolving the Catalan political conflict before the elections. Poland has extended its support to North Macedonia in its ambition to join the EU and NATO. Polish President Andrzej Duda said North Macedonia is expected to join NATO in the following weeks. Duda said he had given North Macedonia's President Stevo Pendarovsk Poland's support. He said the inclusion of the country in the EU is important after Brexit. Spain is the last NATO member that needs to ratify North Macedonia's entry to the military alliance. After Taiwan, Vietnam and Saudi Arabia have reported a bird flu outbreak. This comes as the world struggles to contain the spread of a deadly China coronavirus. The virus has killed 2,200 birds in Vietnam, while it has killed over 22,000 birds in Saudi Arabia. The Saudi Agriculture Ministry said over 385,000 birds were also slaughtered as a precaution. This is the first such outbreak in the kingdom since July 2018. The H5N8 strain of the bird flu detected in Saudi Arabia has been declared increasingly infectious. Earlier, Taiwan reported 56 deaths due to the H1N1 swine flu virus in the past 3 months. Myanmar has reimposed an internet ban in the two conflict-torn western states of Rakhine and Chin. This comes after the International Court of Justice ordered Naypyidaw to stop persecuting Rohingyas. A Norwegian mobile group said the government ordered internet traffic to be stopped for 3 months in both states. The company said the ban was partially lifted 5 months ago. European diplomats are urging Myanmar to start prosecuting people responsible for atrocities against the Rohingya. After a UN Security Council meeting, Estonia's ambassador Sven Jurgensen asked Myanmar to carry out last month ICJ's verdict. Bhutan has introduced a sustainable development fee for visitors from India, Bangladesh and Maldives. The decision to impose the fee came after an increase in the number of Indian tourists visiting Bhutan. The fee of $16.85 a day will be effective from July this year. In a statement, Bhutan's foreign minister said the government will consider fiscal incentives if the new fee affected the hotel sector. Last October, an Indian biker caused outrage by clambering on the top of a monument to pose for a photograph. It's time for a short break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Mexico City has banned the use of plastic bags. The decision aims to reduce the daily generation of solid waste. The step was well received by the Mexican citizens. This report has the details. Mexico City is the world's top garbage generating capital, producing 13,000 tons of solid waste daily. 15% of this garbage is comprised of single-use plastic. As a first step, local authorities have banned the use of plastic bags.
I prefer to take my trolley or my bag, another cloth or coarse cloth bag, and I avoid being given any plastic bags as much as I can.
People have accepted the ban, preferring to bring their own reusable bags with them when they shop.
This is the Mexican basket that represents the use of fibers and is part of our heritage. It is carried this way and it allows you to counterbalance the weight. They are resistant and durable.
State officials say everyone must fight the country's harmful addiction to plastic.
We also need to re-educate ourselves. And the way to re-educate ourselves is to look back to the origin. And this beginning is full of richness and proposals made by the original peoples.
Authorities and citizens agree that the single-use plastic has caused great damage to Mexico's environment. Whether they'll be able to kick the plastic habit once and for all remains to be seen. Google says due to a software glitch in its Photo app, some users' private videos were incorrectly exported to strangers. The tech giant apologized and said the underlying issue has been resolved. Google said it conducted an in-depth analysis to help prevent this from happening again. It said less than 0.01% of those who use the takeout tool may have encountered the bug. The company said the glitch affected users who exported Google photo content in November last year. Chinese telecom giant Huawei has promised to set up 5G manufacturing hubs in Europe as it tries to fight off Washington's pressure on the EU. Huawei said the telecom company is more committed to Europe than ever before. Huawei's top executive in Europe, Abraham Liu, said politically motivated suspicion doesn't address the challenges ahead. Liu urged Europe, the US and China to talk about collaboration and common rules. This comes days after the EU said member states could ban telecom operators deemed a security risk from critical 5G infrastructure. In Jordan, an e-sport tournament was arranged at the Zatari refugee camp, where Syrian children living in traumatic circumstances got a chance to have a go on the PlayStation. A 14-year-old boy won the first prize. More details in this report.
Syrian refugee children in Jordan faced off in the country's first esports tournament for refugees. The 6-day event featured 250 games of FIFA 2020. 200 children participated in the tournament, including 60 girls. The event was organized with the collaboration of the UEFA Foundation for Children. According to UEFA, competition aimed to provide recreational spaces for boys and girls.
It was the first time for most of the children to see a PlayStation, use it and get enrolled in training. They all felt excited and the turnout was big, but unfortunately because of the tournament, we were not able to let everyone in. Also, we inspired the girls to open up their minds for more things to play and learn.
The children received an extensive 2-month training course before the event.
First, you should never underestimate your opponent, no matter what. Second, your lineup depends on how you play the game, how you train, and for how long. For example, a beginner needs to develop. I used to play this game for a long time. I was playing PlayStation 3, not 4.
Muhammad Al-Hariri, winner of the tournament, was delighted to win the competition. He said he was nervous in the tournament's early stages, but later he gained the confidence needed to win.
My friends always expected that I will win because I used to beat them when we played together. I did not expect to win because I thought there would be other players who are better than me.
The Zatari camp is home to 80,000 Syrian refugees. More than half of them are children. UEFA intends to replicate the tournament in other areas as well.
In California, yoga sessions at prisons are helping to reshape the lives of inmates. A group of 25 prisoners is enrolled in yoga classes to cope with the difficulties of the life inside. Watch more in this report.
Behind the walls and bales of razor wire of a California prison, inmates have found a way to relieve the everyday reality of prison life. They take yoga classes as part of a rehabilitation project called Prison Yoga, a scheme that has been up and running for 18 years. The reward is 10 days off their total sentence for every 52 hours of yoga. Inmates say they are calmer and more hopeful.
You know, it gave me the ability to, to deal with situations without, being angry.
The project executive director, Bill Brown, says this unresolved pain must be addressed to remove the use of violence. Prison authorities say 50 inmates are on the waiting list, a list that's a year long.
A lot of people are surprised at just how popular yoga is in men's prisons.
Brown says yoga should be popularized, not only in richer neighborhoods, but in poorer ones too, especially schools.
In Italy, an exhibition of ancient footwear is celebrating Roman-era art of the shoe alongside contemporary fashion. The show in the Italian city of Florence promises to satisfy the curiosity of anyone interested in the shoes, ancient and modern. Have a look at this report.
Massive feet in marble and bronze and the remnants of destroyed statues of gods and kings have been brought together at Florence's Palazzo Pitti. Each foot is carefully enmeshed in crepite sandals fastened with an intricate web of laces covering the foot. Exhibition carries 80 pieces of sculptures, urns and sandals, some on loan from international museums.
Here you can see the shoes that were worn by Liz Taylor in Cleopatra or Russell Crowe in Gladiator. All of them were made by the shoemaker Pompey in Rome, who is the world leader in the manufacturing of this type of shoe.
In ancient past, shoes told everything that could be known about the wearer.
In the ancient world, footwear was an instrument for passing from one phase of life to another, from a young woman to a married woman. It was also an instrument of work.
The show will run until April 19th.
It's time for a short break. We'll be right back. OPEC is consulting with China for an urgent assessment of the effect of coronavirus on oil demand. The request was made after Wang Chun, China's ambassador to international organizations in Vienna, visited the cartel's headquarters. Wang said the virus will inevitably affect oil demand, but cautioned against overreacting. Delegates from the OPEC Plus alliance are in Vienna for a technical meeting to discuss action following the outbreak. They are debating more aggressive oil output cuts than previously considered after reviewing new data. Crude prices fell below $50 a barrel in New York on Monday for the first time in more than a year. Airbus has closed its aircraft production facility in Tianjin due to the coronavirus outbreak. The aviation giant says production was halted because China's domestic and worldwide travel restrictions are posing logistical challenges. The Tianjin facility is the first of its kind for Airbus outside Europe. The facility is a completion center for single-aisle A320 aircraft and can also handle the larger A330. Airbus has not indicated when the facility will reopen. The company said it is constantly evaluating the situation. The U.S. stocks have risen at the open, building on the week's already strong gains. The markets are amplifying as investors recover from a recent drop sparked by coronavirus fears. Better than expected jobs data also lifted investor sentiment. The indices of S&P 500 and Dow Jones Industrial Average are trading nearly 1% higher. A surge in the United Health and Caterpillar shares soared the Dow Jones Industrial Average. Nasdaq Composite Index is also trading on positive notes. Another weather situation from around the globe. And that's all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus.News.